Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best.
And now from the WWSP 90 FM studios in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, here's Alex Strouf.
Oh, yeah. Live on a Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020. We welcome you to the very first ever edition of the Alex Strouf Show right here on CreamCityCentral.com and all social platforms. Thanks so much for jumping in with me on a Tuesday. Now, first off and foremost, this is probably the first time a lot of you have seen me. So hello, I'm Alex Strouf. Give me a thumbs up or a wave, whatever you want to do in the comment sections as we are live across Facebook and Twitter at Cream City Central. Now, a lot of the feedback we've gotten over the course of the last 2 weeks since we've announced this is, how the hell are you going to do a sports talk show 2 hours Tuesday and Thursday each week when there's no freaking sports going on? And that, my friends, is a great question. There's always lots to talk about, and there's always lots happening in the world of sports, and we will absolutely get to the bottom of all we can do. Here in the next 2 hours, we are live until 5 p.m. Central Time right here. We've got a great show for you planned today on a June 2nd. We have Travis Diener, who is the point guard of the 2003 Marquette Golden Eagles, the Final Four team. He'll join us later in the 3 o'clock hour. And in the 4 o'clock hour, we will go all football as Matt Schneidman, of The Athletic. He covers the Packers for The Athletic. Will join us at about 4:30. Now, this is the Alex Strouf Show, but I don't do this alone. So I'd like to introduce my friend Kyle Hoffenbecker, who is on the dials today. Kyle, hello. Happy Tuesday, my friend. How are you? Well, if we could hear you, that'd be good. Oh no!
There we go.
Technical difficulties, right?
There we go.
Gate. Hi,
all
Kyle.
right.
How are you?
No, I'm good to go. I'm excited. I'm pumped. I mean, we're working on this last couple weeks. Finally today we get to broadcast to the world. Yeah, man, and lots to jump into. And you know, Kyle and I have known each other for a couple of years through our work with the Green Bay Blizzard, where I am the play-by-play voice. And Kyle likes to use cameras and stuff. So he does a lot of that for the Blizzard. Yeah. So you and I are going to be kind of tag teaming this fun little project through Cream City Central, who has been gracious enough to let us use their platform and hopefully do some entertaining and informing stuff. At least we hope so. So that is the plan. As mentioned, we've got Travis Diener at 3:30, Matt Schneidman at 4:30. I keep screwing up his last name. It's Schneidman. I'm going to get it right when he's on the phone, I promise. So we'll get into all that. But obviously, a lot to jump into in the world of sports. So we're going to take a quick time out right here on the Alex Strouf Show. And we'll get into all things baseball on the other side, because this has been an ongoing saga. This is the Alex Strouf Show on Cream City Central. We welcome you back to the Alex Strouf Show. And as you've been aware, none of you are living under rocks as far as I'm aware. The world of baseball has been making headlines and, you know, lack of a better term, pissing a lot of people off the last few weeks because, you know, the NHL comes out with this solid plan. The only thing they were really missing is a date. The NBA comes out with a solid plan, says we know what we want to do, we think, and we're aiming for July 31st. And baseball has just not been able to even be on the same planet as anybody else. Now's a good time to introduce our poll question that you can find on Twitter at CreamCityCTRAL. Will we have baseball in 2020? The poll's standing right now at 52% yes, 48% no. We also added a hell no option for any of you that are very, very passionate. That's got 6% of the vote, but it's a 52-48 split right now, whether or not we think we see baseball in 2020. And until this week, I think a lot of us were leaning more toward, no, we're not going to have baseball in 2020 because the players, the owners haven't been friendly, if you will. And Rob Manfred
who I will openly say is one of the worst, if not the worst, commissioner in sports the last several years, hasn't really been a good middleman for any of this. So we look at Jeff Passan of ESPN, who came out with a pretty good rundown of where we're sitting yesterday for ESPN. So I'm just going to excerpt some of what Passan said in his article for ESPN. He said on Sunday, there was an offer from the players that proposed a 114-game schedule that would cover 70.3% of their original salaries, unquote. So the players want 114 games. Now, let's remember the season was supposed to start at the end of March. It is now June 2nd, and we still don't have a plan in place for when we're going to have baseball. Now, the owners come back, 50-game schedule, pay players 30.8% of that rate. So we go from 114 games to 50 games, and the salary, the prorated salary, goes from 70% to 30%. So clearly, there's got to be a happy medium, right? Right smack dab in the middle of 50 games and 114 games is the 82-game season that was originally proposed. So it's just this weird roundabout merry-go-round that we've been stuck in for the last 2 weeks. And there's really very little progress being made outside of the fact, and Kyle and I were talking about this before the show, the prorated salaries is the one thing where maybe we have that glimmer of hope that there will be baseball in 2020. Rob Manfred says this in a statement. Based on that feedback received from the Players Association, the Office of the Commissioner will construct and provide to the Players Association as promptly as possible a proposed 2020 championship season and postseason schedule or multiple schedule options, taking a page out of the book of the NBA, using best efforts to play as many games as possible while taking into account player safety and health, rescheduling needs, competitive considerations, stadium availability, and so on and so forth, right? The concerns we rightfully have during this pandemic. But this resumption of play is just, it doesn't seem like it's close still to me. Even with the prorated salaries, this still doesn't seem like this is close to happening for me. And I just am at a loss for words about how long this has gone on. March 26th was the first agreement we've heard. We've had the months of April, we've had the months of May, and now we're into the month of June with still really no middle ground being met. And this is prime baseball time. If they want to get back by July 31st, like the NBA is planning on doing, something needs to get done now. I'm not saying you wait. These owners that apparently don't have the money to pay their single A, double A, triple A affiliates, I'm looking at Oakland, which, A, that's not the case, but that's a different conversation that maybe we'll jump into here in a few minutes. But at this point, we are not anywhere where we need to be for baseball to happen in 2020. So I want to go ahead and direct you the direction of Cream City Central's Twitter page, where we have our Alex Strouf Show Twitter question of the day. Will there be baseball in 2020? With 83 votes in, 51.8% of you say yes, while 48.2% of you say no. So this is tied right up. You guys are as indecisive as me. I say no. I don't think there's baseball in 2020. To me, there's absolutely no way, because we've heard players speak out and say, look, we don't want to play on a salary of 30%. We're not going to, obviously testing needs to be essential, but we don't want to risk everything for 30% of the dollar. We want 70%. We want to play 114 games. We don't want to play 50 games. Baseball is a long season, as we all know very well. In 162 games, a lot happens. If you cut this down to 50, you can't start the season in a slump, because the best teams out of each division, if that's the way they go about it, aren't going to prevail. the Dodgers typically, and maybe not typically, but the Dodgers in the past have had a slow start in May and June. And the Dodgers are easily the best team in the National League, in my mind. If they lose, if they go 8-12 in their first 20 games, you've already dug a hole with 40% of your schedule done. It's crazy to me that 50 games doesn't make sense. You can't have a 50-game baseball season. Right? Am I insane by thinking that? You can't have a 50-game baseball. That literally, in my mind, is not a baseball season. It's a high school baseball season, sure, but that is not a Major League Baseball season. I want to bring Kyle in and get his thoughts here. Kyle, obviously, you think, and we talked about this beforehand, and Leroy Clamola, I always slaughter his last name, just chimed in on the Facebook chat with a good comment. Shortened season changes the dynamics of everything, and we'll pop that on here. Yeah, and it does. So, Kyle, why don't you unmute yourself? Give me your thoughts, because you think there's a season, but if it's 50 games, that's not a baseball season to me, Kyle.
It can't be 50 games. The reason why I am on board with I'm more confident there will be a season as of today compared to last week, when Jeff Passan came out with the news that the owners are willing to pay a prorated salary for 50 games. I didn't look at the 50 games part, because when you look at 50 games out of 162, that's a third. That'd be like if the NFL played 4 games in the regular season.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
It doesn't make
just
any
insane.
Damn sense to me. 50 games doesn't make sense.
What I think is going to end up happening is somehow the players are going to leverage themselves back up to the point where they play prorated salary at 82 games, like what has been proposed since the beginning.
Right.
So you have all these all these discussions, all this bickering back and forth just to get to where you wanted to in the beginning. So there's a lot of incompetence with the MLB. They're higher up.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I was very, I was like, maybe a 30 to 40% chance they play. Now I'm back up to like a 50, 60% chance that they actually have a season. But you're right. It needs to happen now. They need to come up with something in the next 2 weeks if they want to have anything that even makes sense of a season. And because you have to think about it too, they need 2 to 4 weeks at least of build up to get back in playing.
Well, you have to get some sort of training. Yeah. You have to have some sort of exhibition, right? We didn't have spring training. It's the plans. Incompetence is a great word. That's a better word than what I've used to explain this, because Major League Baseball, incompetence is a very good word for what they've been able to do over the course of the last couple of weeks. I'm mind blown, because you look at the NFL, and obviously this shouldn't be the NFL season, right? But the NFL has continued to roll on, has continued to entertain us with the NFL draft, which we'll talk to Matt Schneidman about next hour. They've rolled on with free agency. Tom Brady left New England, for Pete's sake. I mean, are you not entertained? The NFL's rolled on without a season. The NBA, it was like this, right? We'll cancel the last 15 games of the season. We'll go straight to the playoffs. And they clearly found a work. Obviously, it's more complex with baseball because there's a salary thing. They've lost a lot of games when they should have started in late March, as I mentioned at the top. But it's just all so blurry. And there's such a gray line that we're towing with the MLB season. So as our Twitter poll goes final, 51.8% of you say yes. 48.2% of you say no, there will not be a season. So it seems like we're split. We are split as our Twitter poll goes final. I want to hear any of your thoughts here live in the chat. That's the fun part about the Alex Strouf Show. We'll do a lot of interaction. I love reading your comments. So always feel free to chime in with what you have to say, because I like to hear what's on your mind. But I want to switch gears here before we get to Travis Diener here in about 15 minutes. And that is what's been going on in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Now, with this being a Wisconsin platform, I'm not afraid to take a look at mid-majors. I'm not afraid to take a look at medium, middle of the pack programs, because you're in the state. You at least give a sliver of a crap about what's going on. So I want to direct your attention to UW Green Bay. Their men's basketball program has been under the direction of Linc Darner for the last several years. And this is a team I covered Linc Darner's first year in Green Bay. And Linc Darner had that program 12 games above 500 in his 4 or 5 years in Green Bay. And all of a sudden, they reach an agreement, and I'm going to use air quotes for this. They reach an agreement to part ways at the end of May. UW Green Bay's season ended before the COVID pandemic hit. They lost already in the Horizon League tournament. They weren't going to the tournament. They weren't going to the NIT. They weren't going anywhere. Their season was over in early March, and they waited until late May to part ways with Linc Darner. This whole situation doesn't make any damn sense to me. And I said that about the last thing. A lot of things are blurry. And maybe the pandemic is to blame for that. But really, at the end of the day, this situation is really confusing. So I'm going to try to break it down for you, run you down the timeline if you're not familiar with what's happened with Linc Darner. So it was sometime around mid to late May 19th, I believe it was, May 18th, when Linc Darner was fired by UW Green Bay. And the athletic director and Chancellor Michael Alexander essentially just said, hey, he was 92-80, 5 seasons, NCAA tournament, first one in a long time for Green Bay, might I add. A 20-year drought they had before going to the tournament back in 2016. So it's very blurry. And now we start to get some more details. He didn't really do anything wrong, but so they have to pay him. So this is what Linc Darner's contract is going to look like. And I'm going to read this right from my great friend Scott Vincey, who works for the Green Bay Press-Gazette. He covers UW Green Bay. He tweeted this on May 29th. Former UWGB men's basketball coach Linc Darner will be paid by the school at least $720,000 until April 2023 under the agreement signed by Darner and Green Bay. He received $120,000 on May 21st, will receive $120,000 on January 1st. So he made a nice buck on May 21st. We'll make it again on January 1st. And then payments of $20,000 per month every month from May 1st of 2021 through April 1st of 2022. And then more monthly payments of $20,000 from May 1st of 22 to April 1st of 23. And if he doesn't get another coaching or assistant job before then, he will get another payment of $240,000. So this guy's looking at well over $1 million from UW Green Bay. And Vincey said it perfectly. Quick take, congratulations to Linc Darner. Because he's walking away with a lot more questions than answers from Green Bay. And it's unbelievable to me. But so Gary Gresh, who's the coach at St. Norbert, he is now withdrawn from consideration for the UW Green Bay job. And I talked to Scott Vincey, who, like I said, has been doing a terrific job for the Green Bay Press-Gazette. He just sent me a message about 10 minutes ago. You should expect a hire by late next week. So we should have an answer late next week. So next week, maybe we'll have to bring Vincey on to clear up what the hell's going on at UW Green Bay, because it is all a very confusing situation. New athletic director, new chancellor. Do they want their own guy? Sure. But is it worth $1 million after he brought you to your first NCAA tournament in 20 years, just a couple of years ago, and they were competing well in the Horizon League tournament this year? Jacob Lenzendorf on the screen. Amari Davis staying is absolutely huge. 100%. 100%. Amari Davis, who is a do-it-all guy for Green Bay. And I almost said Linc Darner and company. But that's no longer the case. So we will find out and keep an eye on this UW Green Bay situation, because it is as confusing as it gets for Linc Darner. And that is a situation that I'm glad some of you are chiming in on, because it doesn't get attention. This isn't Wisconsin, right? This isn't the mysterious disappearance of Bo Ryan when he said halfway through a season, okay, I want out. But that was more to push forward his guy in Greg Gard. This isn't the situation. You don't see a Division I program fire their head coach in mid-late May. That doesn't happen. So where are they going to go find a guy that wants to leave his job? I mean, all of your recruits are already committed for next year and probably the following year. You have an immediate situation to figure out. From Scott Vincey 2 hours ago, lots of chatter about Northern State University coach Saul Phillips being a contender for the UWGB men's opening. 3 issues with that. He didn't apply, isn't interviewing, and is said to be happy at Northern State. That's according to Scott Vincey of the Green Bay Press-Gazette. Where do they go? It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off, says Leroy. Absolutely. Because the incompetence, that's our word of the first half hour of the Alex Strouf Show. We've had a technical difficulty. Rob Manfred can't get his rich multi-billion owners to button it up and say, okay, let's go ahead and support our minor league players. When the Oakland A's owner is a multi-billionaire with a B, and now we've got UW Green Bay firing their head coach in mid-May. It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. This is the Alex Strouf Show. You can connect with the show using hashtag Strouf Show on Twitter and Facebook, or comment right here. I can see everything you're saying. I appreciate all the love thus far, and I'm glad you're kicking it along with us. So before we get to a quick commercial break, and on the other side, we will get to Travis Diener. I want to introduce what we'll be doing after Travis Diener. So some of you that are familiar with me know I do a show called Fight Night. We are now going to make that a part of the Alex Strouf Show right here on Cream City Central, where every Tuesday I will release the topic, and every Thursday I'll bring on one of you. You can comment live in the chat, or we will post an archive version of the topic. You can comment right under that. What your take on the topic is, and you can come on, debate, and discuss that with me each Thursday. So every Tuesday we'll release a new topic. We'll do that at about 3:50 today, and we will get to you on Thursday. We'll bring somebody on to talk about this week's topic, which I said we will announce at about 3:50. So just a heads up, there's an opportunity for you to come on this show because I love interaction. I always have. I'm huge on it. That's why this was the perfect fit for me, where I can literally have Kyle grab one of your comments and throw them on the screen. This makes it a lot of fun for me. I hope it makes it at least a little bit of fun for you. And we will do it. We will do it like the only way we know how. So we were going to jump to a quick break. We will have Travis Diener, former Marquette point guard, on the other side. This is the Alex Strouf Show on Cream City Central. Back inside the Alex Strouf Show. My name is Alex Strouf, and we go to the phone lines now as we are joined by the point guard of Marquette University from 2001 to 2005. He was a member of the Marquette 2003 Final Four team, and currently with, I'm totally going to slaughter this, Vinoli Cremona of the LBA in Italy. It is the great Travis Diener. Travis, thanks so much for jumping on with us, man. Hope everything's good on your end during these crazy times.
Yeah, we're doing well. Thanks for having me.
So talk to me, man. Obviously playing ball in Italy yet. Now, you mentioned, as we had a couple seconds before we went live, you're back in Wisconsin with the family. How have the last couple months been for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a little crazy, I think, for everybody. But, for us, we were, kind of in the epicenter of this virus for a while, and we were very fortunate to get out and get home. And, got back home and, dealt with the quarantine and, all the restrictions that have gone on, like everybody else. But we've been healthy, which is the most important part, and just kind of, now just enjoying the weather that's turned here in the last couple of weeks. So all in all, we're doing well. No complaints.
Good to hear, my friend. Yeah, you mentioned being in the epicenter of that. I wanted to know kind of what that situation was like. So what was the timeline for you?
Yeah, it was, everything was happening really, really fast as far as regulations and restrictions. It seemed like every 6 to 12 hours in Italy, something new was happening. So it happened fast where, one day you're out you could do pretty much anything you wanted. And then 24 hours later, it was essentially you couldn't leave your house. And if you did, you'd get fined.
Wow.
Only one person was allowed to go to the grocery store once a week. And I think they held that for about 2 months. I mean, they're just now getting back to some sort of normal life. But it got crazy quick. It was a little surreal. It was kind of, when we drove to the airport the morning we got out, it was almost like a movie. So we got lucky to get out. The airport shut down the day essentially right after our flight left for Frankfurt. The airport completely shut down. So we had a great trip coming back. Actually, we got very lucky. Otherwise, we would have been stuck there, I think, and who knows when we would have got back. So we were very, very lucky.
Wow. Well, happy to hear everything's all good. I mean, that is it has been a crazy few months. So happy to hear that, man. But let's go to basketball. You're playing out in Italy. You've been there for about a decade. You're still feeling good, loving ball. Everything's all good on the court.
I mean, I love ball. Yeah. Feeling good's a different story. I mean, when the age starts to creep up and up, there's days where you just, you don't feel very well, but I feel well enough to continue to try to grind it out and to play. And basketball's always, been a huge part of my life since I was a little kid, and I enjoy, the games aren't the problem anymore. It's, the preparation time in the summer right now, it's keeping yourself ready to go. It's the preseason. That's the stuff that is hard mentally to get going. But we'll see. I don't know if I'll go back and play again. It's kind of a decision that we have to make. But it's been a great experience overseas for us.
Hey, man, if you called it quits now, nobody would bat an eye, because look at you. Just a year ago, you won a title and you were dropping, 26 points in the semis, I think I saw. You still got it, man.
Yeah, I guess blind squirrel can find a nut once in a while.
There you go. Joined by Travis Diener here in the Alex Strouf Show, at Diener Travis on Twitter, the Marquette point guard from 2001 to 2005. Travis, you've been playing with the Golden Eagles in the basketball tournament the last couple of summers, and man, you still got it. You can't tell me otherwise. What's that experience been like, getting on the court with a bunch of former Marquette alum?
Yeah, that's been really fun for me, because you're playing with guys that, for me, the guys that came after me, and guys that I've watched go through the Marquette, program, and to be able to compete with these guys and put on the jersey and represent Marquette again in a smaller fashion, of course, but something that still means a lot to people. And it's been a blast because, all these games are on ESPN, and, when I'm playing overseas, not many people get a chance to see me or don't know much about the Italian league. So the chance to play high-level basketball against really, really good competition, and a prize that is pretty incredible. The basketball tournament's done a great job of really putting this together, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. And it's really given me, so many memories for the rest of my life that I never thought I'd have a chance to do again.
And you bring up the basketball tournament. You're absolutely spot on. It is wonderfully done. One of the aspects of that, other than seeing guys like you, who a lot of us, have seen on the court way back in the heyday, is the Elam ending that they have. We saw it in the NBA All-Star game this year. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Elam ending.
Yeah, I love it. I think, as a kid, anyone who's played basketball and in the driveway, every game that ends is on a buzzer shot or a game-winning shot, and this kind of takes you back to that. It's there's no fouling. It seems like the end of games go quicker. The refs kind of don't want to decide the outcome, and you got to make a shot to win a game. And I think you're going to see this incorporated throughout basketball a little more. I could see the NBA, maybe doing this in the regular season, like maybe for overtime,
right?
Because it is different. I think it's, and I think the fans like it. If you're down 10 with 3 minutes left in the game, in all likelihood, you're not going to win that game. In this scenario, you get a few stops. You make a couple shots, you're right back in it. So I think that the chance of a comeback maybe goes a little higher than a regular, foul. Guys have to miss free throws, stuff like that. So I've enjoyed it. Obviously, we've had success with it. I've had some personal success with it,
yes,
so maybe I'm biased towards it, but I enjoy it.
No, you're the perfect guy to ask because you have had some said success. Now, Travis, I want to switch gears just a smidge because I have kind of a weird question for you. Have you ever read your Wikipedia page?
Someone sent it to me after, I believe it was after last year's TBT about, I think it said something about playing in the TBT after drinking like a bunch of White Claws and stuff like that. Someone sent it to me.
You got it. I'm going to ask you about that. I'm going to read it to you, then ask you about it. So here's what it says on your Wikipedia page, Travis. He rejoined the Marquette alumni team for the championship weekend of the 2019 tournament, hitting 2 consecutive three-pointers. Now, here we go. While wearing cowboy boots without socks to win in the semifinals versus misspelled Team Hines while drunk on 12 cans of White Claw. Where does that come from?
I don't know. I guess if I could change a couple things, it'd be good because then the legend would grow and I won't challenge it. But maybe like 7 threes in a row to finish.
Right.
Cowboy boots is a good one, and maybe like a case of Miller Lights, 12 White Claws. I don't know. It sounds kind of soft, so I have to like a case of Miller Lights.
Maybe like upgrade to Twisted Teas. I drank way too many of those this weekend, so who knows?
Exactly.
But I can confirm I did watch the clip. You were not wearing cowboy boots, and you were wearing socks.
Yeah, I was dressed just like a basketball player would. That was I don't know how you can get in there and change people's Wikipedia pages, but I found that pretty comical.
Yeah, and I'm just shocked that nobody's removed the fact that you were drunk on 12 cans of White Claw while hitting. I mean, you seriously hit just a deep ass three. I mean, this was not just a normal 3-pointer catch and shoot type of shot. This was a pull up, and you knew it was going in both times.
Yeah. Fortunately, it was the defense, especially in the second one. It was a kind of a transition play, and they kind of got lost for a second. And it was a shot that I told the guys like in the Elam ending, if you get in the half court, it's very physical and it's hard to get a good shot off. So I said, even if they make a shot, we have to push it. And they made a shot, and I think they got a little relaxed and just pushed it in transition and found an opening, and fortunately, knocked it down.
Joined by Travis Diener here on the Alex Strouf Show. Travis, a couple days ago, the basketball tournament tweeted a reaction of your dad. I don't know if it was to that shot, but it was one of your game winners in TBT. So I got to ask, man, that was an awesome video, but who's more intense, you or your dad?
Oh, my dad.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
I figured, yeah.
I'm crazy, but I get it from someone, and Tim. It was funny because that game was that video was from I believe 2 years ago when we beat Syracuse, and I hit the shot, and my mom already had known it was on. They had recorded it because they were gone. So my mom knew the outcome. My dad did. Mom had the video on them as the ending was happening. So it was that shows just a very, very short glimpse of who my dad is as a person. He's very, very intense, very, very competitive. I think that's where a lot of that comes from in me. But yeah, he's there's a running joke in our family that there should always be a Bob cam. Bob's my dad's name at every game that I've played in because he goes a little crazy during the game.
That's fantastic. Yeah. He's just as supportive as he can be. So that was good to see. So I want to turn back the clock a little bit, Travis, and looking back at this 2003 Final Four that you played in, I'm just going to name some of the guys that were a part of that, right? You have your coach, Tom Crean, your teammates, Dwayne Wade, Steve Novak, the guys you played in the Final Four, Jim Boeheim and Carmelo Anthony, Roy Williams, Kirk Heinrich, also a part of that Final Four. Do you ever reflect and say, holy smokes, that was one of the neatest Final Fours I could be a part of?
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was a lot of talent, both player-wise, and then obviously the coaches were, Coach Crean and Coach Williams, Coach Boeheim, and then Coach Barnes with Texas. And then you had TJ Ford on Texas, who was, I believe, the National Player of the Year that year. And then, like you said, Heinrich and Collison, and then obviously Melo, and then, we had Wade. So it's star power. And I think back then, that was the case in most Final Fours because, guys now, they're leaving early and they're not, the level of basketball kind of declines because, most teams are really young and guys are leaving and kind of the infrastructure, you don't build camaraderie and guys are, teams don't get old. And obviously if teams get old, they get better.
Yep.
And we were an older team. I think all those teams were older. So, the quality of each team was huge. I mean, the week before we beat a Kentucky team that was, the best team in the country, and they were loaded as well. So I just think, in the last 15 years, obviously with the way guys leave early for the draft and for right reasons, but it's just the quality of college basketball has gone down.
You led me right into my next question. Thanks so much for that, Travis. I was going to ask you your opinion on kind of the one and done format, if you will, that's kind of been so prevalent the last decade or so, or even a little bit more than that. It seems like you mentioned you can't build the camaraderie. Not a huge fan, but you said also it's for the right reasons. Overall thought on kind of the one and done we've been seeing?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you're not going to get these great teams anymore. The likelihood of getting old is tough. But if you have the chance to live out a lifelong dream of playing in the NBA, and nobody should tell you no. And I personally don't think you should even. I mean, if you have an opportunity to go pro after high school, I think you should have that option. I think if you're ready and you're going to take that risk of playing in the NBA and sacrificing everything, then you should have that ability to do that. But yeah, like I said, college basketball obviously is going to be hurt by that, only because, I mean, as you're seeing now, some of these high school guys are just going straight to the G League, and I think some have gone overseas. So I think you're going to see more and more of that. But it's unfortunate because the level of college basketball, it's still, I mean, nothing will ever change how people feel about college basketball because you're still getting that, that raw emotion, and you got the connection to your school and things of that sort. The overall level has dropped a little bit.
Great answer. Appreciate that. Now, you're still playing, and you mentioned, maybe not, but your college teammate Dwayne Wade is not. I want a quote out of you. You could take him one-on-one, right?
Oh, geez, I don't know about that.
How about Novak?
Depends what kind of shape he's in. Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would smoke Steve. Steve, I can take.
Okay, but Dwayne, maybe not. We need a few more years of retirement.
I got to see what kind of shape he's in. I know Steve hasn't. I talk and see Steve quite a bit, and Steve probably hasn't, picked up a basketball too many times since he retired, and he's always had kind of bad feet. So I would like my matchup there. Now, Dwayne's probably still in pretty good shape, and obviously he's one of the best players ever to pick up a basketball. So that would be a tough one for me.
Absolutely. You gave me the quote, so I appreciate that. Last one for you, Travis. The other day, I really stalked your Twitter here. An account called Random College Basketball Players tweeted about you. Is that weird to be like, oh, I'm just random now? I mean, back in 2003, you guys were the S word. Now you're just random. I mean, what was that like, just seeing your picture pop up?
I actually take it all as a compliment.
Okay.
If people are posting from my college days 17 years later, I think I take it as a huge compliment, and I'm humbled by it. It's I can be random. It's always humbling to see yourself. Later on, you kind of appreciate the journey that I appreciate the journey I've been on and the places I've been. So I take it as a compliment, and there's no ill will towards anybody who ever posts anything about me. I don't take. There's one thing, I don't take myself really seriously. So I mean, you can say I was a bum too. It doesn't really bother me.
I can assure you weren't a bum. I'm glad you don't take yourself too seriously, because we never should. And we appreciate you jumping on, Travis. Always a pleasure, and we'll have to do it again soon, my man. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Back at you, man. Appreciate it. That is Travis Diener, Marquette point guard from 2001 to 2005, member of the 2003 Marquette Final Four team. As you heard, some great stuff out of him. He could smoke Steve Novak one-on-one. His former college teammate is what he said. Bad feet. He said Steve Novak had bad feet. I love that. We are going to take a quick break. On the other side, we are going to release our Fight Night topic for this week, so don't you dare go anywhere. This is the Alex Strouf Show on Cream City Central. We welcome you back inside the studio number 3 here at the WWSP 90 FM studios in Stevens Point. My name is Alex Strouf. This is the Alex Strouf Show here on Cream City Central. We thank again Travis Diener for joining us here in hour number 1. Great stuff from him. That quote about Steve Novak, we got to post that somewhere, right? We got to really put him out of context. Say, he said the old man's got bad feet. Good stuff from him. We appreciate him once again for hopping on to us. Now, I mentioned this earlier in the show. If you're just joining us, I will reintroduce what we're about to do here. So me, personally, I do a show called Fight Night, which we are now implementing into, there's the logo. Look at you, Kyle. Which we are implementing here into the Alex Strouf Show. So every Tuesday, I am going to present a topic to you. You're welcome to chime in live. You're welcome to wait until we archive the footage and comment maybe a video or a text comment below. And whoever has a really compelling answer or argument or debate that wants to come on and chat with me is welcome to on Thursday. We'll choose one person each week to jump on with us, no matter who you are. So let's talk about this week's topic for Fight Night with Alex Strouf. The topic this week is heading into the 2020 NFL season, who are your top 5 quarterbacks? So, for example, I'm going to say my top 5, and when next season comes to a completion, it should look something like this. Don't hold back on your takes, because I definitely will not. Let's go through my 5, and I'll talk about each of them at least a hair, and we'll go deeper into this on Thursday when we do the live debate segment. So my top quarterback heading into 2020 is the reigning Super Bowl MVP. This one's a no-brainer, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, also a no-brainer, and I really don't think maybe the order of these two can be debated, but the top 2 shouldn't be debated. Lamar Jackson from Baltimore is my number 2. I think the way he grew from season 1 to season 2, winning the MVP, leading Baltimore to the best record in the NFL, I think that is just what he can do. I think he can do even more of that in year 3, but I don't think he's Mahomes yet. So I'll keep Jackson at spot number 2. Number 3 for me is a guy who I think is going to make a really good case for his first MVP. A guy that's never even received an MVP first place vote, but has always been in the discussion, it seems, at least the last 5 years. Russell Wilson from Seattle. Although San Francisco's coming off of a Super Bowl run a year ago, I think Seattle runs the NFC West, which, in my opinion, is the most competitive division in the NFL heading into 2020. I think Russell Wilson is just geared up to really, really, really show what he and the Seattle offense are capable of under Pete Carroll after being bounced by Green Bay in the divisional round a year ago. Number 4 is the other really, really competitive division in the NFC South. I'm going to go Drew Brees and New Orleans. I know Brees can put up numbers. We know he has the best receiver, debatably, in the NFL, and Michael Thomas. Drew Brees makes sense to me at number 4. Now, this is where the comments are going to fly in. Number 5, I don't have Aaron Rodgers at number 5. Sorry, Cream City Central fans. I do not have Aaron Rodgers in my top 5 quarterbacks in 2020. Look, if Brian Gutekunst would have gone out and grabbed a wide receiver in the draft, maybe I'd have a different feeling about this. I still think he's a top 10 guy, especially with the addition of A.J. Dillon, which we'll get into at the top of next hour. I don't have him at 5. There's a lot of names you could put here. I don't have Tom Brady at 5. I don't have Jimmy G at 5. I don't have Kirk Cousins at 5. I have Dak Prescott at 5. I don't have Carson Wentz at 5. I have Dak Prescott at 5. Now, hear me out. Before you really, really let it go here in the live comment section. Number 5, Dak Prescott for me, and here's why. You look at Amari, you look at Zeke, you look at that offensive line. A year ago, Dak already put up great numbers. He was second in the league behind only Jameis Winston in passing yards last year. He's capable of making big throws. Now, under Mike McCarthy, and if we know anything about Mike McCarthy, ladies and gentlemen, we know he likes to throw the football. We saw what he did with Aaron Rodgers on the way to his MVP seasons in 11 and 14, on the way to the Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP in 10/11. Mike McCarthy likes to throw the football. Now, when you give Mike McCarthy the best running back in football, will he utilize Zeke more than he utilized a guy like Aaron Jones in his offense? I think we can go ahead and assume yes, right? We look at a guy like Ezekiel Elliott. He's better than Aaron Jones far and away. He's the most dominant running back we've seen since Adrian Peterson in his heyday. We have to assume Mike McCarthy will get it through his thick skull that running the ball sometimes is okay. And that's just going to take a teeny bit of pressure away from Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper. And then you go ahead and CeeDee Lamb, who that was probably the biggest and one of the best fits that we saw in the first round of the NFL draft about a month and a half ago. CeeDee Lamb is just making this offense even better. And although, not first year wide receivers don't always make the just utmost impact by any means. They don't. But CeeDee Lamb's getting dropped into a situation in Dallas with a brand new head coach who loves to throw the football, with a great offensive line, with the best running back in football, and with a quarterback that really, really wants his money. Now, I can't guarantee, I can't sit here and tell you that the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones are going to pay Dak Prescott $40 million a year. Number one, that's not okay for me. When they offered him 30, I thought Jerry Jones was insane. But he wants 40. And I don't think he gets that. I don't think it makes sense to give him that. I understand giving a guy like Aaron Rodgers that money, but Dak Prescott? That makes no sense to me. And we saw how Jerry Jones handled Ezekiel Elliott a year ago. You let Zeke go to a beach, get far away from here, and say, I'm not reporting until you give me my money. And then a reporter said to Jerry, is something about Ezekiel Elliott. And we remember this, right? Jerry Jones replied, Zeke who? And it worked. It paid off for him in the long run. It paid off for Jerry Jones in the long run. He got his back. They signed him big bucks. Look, to me, it goes this way. 1 Mahomes, 2 Jackson, 3 Wilson, 4 Breeze, and 5 is where I put Prescott. Now, there's a lot of guys you could put at 5. A lot of guys you could put at 5. But this is the year, even in a first-year system with Mike McCarthy, that Dallas has to win the NFC East. They have to. If Dallas doesn't win the NFC East this year, something is majorly wrong there. And I don't think Mike McCarthy would be at blame. We know how good of a coach Mike McCarthy is, especially the people that are listening to me talk about this. We know how good Mike McCarthy is. There was a bad ending, but we know he's still a head coach in the NFL. He's still that quality, and he got his opportunity. Now he's got Zeke. He's got Amari Cooper. Already has Dak locked up for at least the year. And now you throw CeeDee Lamb into the mix? And Tyler Biadasz from the Badgers also being thrown into that offensive line mix. So we'll see how he fares in his rookie campaign. But Dallas may be the most intriguing NFL team to me this year. They are the Browns of last year to me. Although they're not as sexy, with the Odell and Jarvis and Baker coming off as rookie of the year, they might not be as sexy as that Cleveland offense was last year. But Dallas is the most intriguing team in the NFL to me this year. With the addition of Mike McCarthy, with the addition of CeeDee Lamb, and coming off, what were they a year ago? 7-9, 8-8, when they finally said, all right, Jason Garrett, that's enough. That's enough, man. So we'll see. We will see. But Prescott goes number 5. Kyle, I want to get your feedback if you don't mind, on my top 5. Prescott at 5, I know you're probably not a fan of, right?
It's hard because now I was listening to you for the last 5 minutes. You kind of sold me a little bit than I was before the show, which
sure.
I mean, you're doing your job. I'm not putting Rodgers in my top 5.
I couldn't justify it. I couldn't justify it.
Yeah, I mean, as great of a quarterback he is, and I mean, when the Packers are on the field and Aaron Rodgers is quarterback, I give a Packers a chance to win any game when Rodgers is playing. He just doesn't make he doesn't make as big of an impact as he does anymore. But 2, he really doesn't need to.
No.
Which is a discussion we can get into maybe later in the show when we talk about the running back situation.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at guys like Kirk Cousins. I'm looking at guys like Carson Wentz. Now Carson Wentz I wouldn't put there because he can't prove he can stay on the field right now. And if he can prove he can stay on the field, then that's a different story. But I also want to bring up some guys who, I mean, they're coming up. You are already talking about Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. They're going to be the face of the NFL, hopefully for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
I want to look at guys like who aren't being talked about as much, like Kyler Murray, who I think has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
That is a great point to bring up, Kyle, because you look at the addition of DeAndre Hopkins. They already have Larry Fitzgerald, who I know he's like 3,900 years old, but he's still competent and still a very good receiver. We saw him post, I think it was a 1,000-yard, if not just short of it, season a year ago, a multiple-time 1,000-yard receiver. He might not be as good as he once was, Larry Fitz, but now you add in DeAndre Hopkins, who, again, I brought up Michael Thomas earlier, is in that discussion of the top wide receiver in the NFL. There's probably 4 or 5 guys you can have in that discussion, and DeAndre Hopkins is at the head of that discussion. I mean, he's at the head of the table for that one. So with his addition to the Arizona offense, I'm interested to see what Cliff Kingsbury will be able to make happen, because Kyler Murray is definitely an incredible option. Really good one. Let's step aside, take a break. Let's move things into hour 2. This is the Alex Strouf Show right here on Cream City Central. Big hour 2 coming up. Don't you dare go anywhere. Back here on the Alex Strouf Show right here on creamcitycentral.com, at Cream City CTRAL on Twitter, and at Cream City Central on Facebook. Rolling into hour number 2. Big hour to get into here as we wrap up day number 1 of the Alex Strouf Show. I'm Alex Strouf, at Alex_Strouf on Twitter. Connect with the show using hashtag Strouf Show on Twitter. We are going to bring Kyle right back in as we are going to hit our 4 p.m. headlines. Kyle?
So the first thing I want to bring up is kind of a lighter story. I mean, we've had a lot of, just negative stuff going on with our world and all that. Some of you may not consider this a sport, but it does involve someone who does play sports. So it's good enough. Bucks tight end Rob Gronkowski loses his WWE 24/7 title. Now, for those of you who don't know who don't really watch wrestling, I do very minimally. The WWE 24/7 title is basically a title that you can be defended at any time, anywhere. It's kind of a gimmicky, whatever. Yeah. And Rob Gronkowski, who you remember hosted WrestleMania just a couple months ago, won it. And he had it it was almost 60 days, and he finally lost it last night. So, like I said, it's a little bit of a lighthearted story, a little bit of lighthearted story that we need, So
I've fallen out of the WWE realm a little bit, Kyle. So Gronk, it says on the headline right there, Bucks tight end Rob Gronkowski. Yeah. I know he signed with WWE, but I'm assuming now that he's lost the title, his run with WWE is over.
That would be my guess. I mean, even though there's nothing going on, he's still. You want to say something? Go ahead and say it.
No, right. I just mean, how this guy, I don't want to call him stupid because he's Rob freaking Gronkowski and he's going to do whatever the hell he wants. Always. That's what he does. That's just shtick, right? But it's just, why would you wrestle when you were playing football again. I guess maybe that's why he lost the title. Thank you for that, Kyle. What's next?
A little bit of lighthearted stuff there for you. Next one here, in light of some of the protesting and stuff that has gone on, Miller Park suffered some minor damage to the stadium this morning. Now I'm going to read a little bit of an excerpt. I found this on Bleacher Report, and it goes in to say, at approximately 7 a.m. this morning, an unarmed individual illegally entered Miller Park and gained access to the players' surface. And this is a statement directly from the Brewers. He was apprehended a short time later by law enforcement after causing minor damage to the field. And this, ongoing investigation, they can't provide any other details. Now, It sounds like, according to the Brewers, that it has nothing to do with any of the protests that we've seen gone on the last couple of days.
Right.
It's just interesting how, I live pretty close to Lambeau Field, and obviously that's, one of the meccas of sports. And comparing Lambeau Field to Miller Park is like, comparing apples to oranges.
Right.
It's still amazing how do you get into a base, and how do you get to the playing field? That's what
First thing I was going to ask, Kyle, how the hell did this guy get in and, number one, get to the field? I'm curious. I don't think they're ever going to release how he did it, but no. I wish I knew. I wouldn't go do it by any means, but I'm curious how the lack of maybe, I don't know, security or a locked gate, or if he was skinny enough to slip through some bars or something. My mind's running wild with how in the world he was able to do this. I'm glad it was nothing worse than what it was. Minor damage is also what I read this morning to the playing field. So hopefully nothing too severe. But we might not even use Miller Park in 2020, and it might just be American Family Field next time we use it.
Yeah.
Moving on. Sound sexy?
Moving on. AmFam Field. Also, I feel bad because I'm kind of going on a down. I should have ended with the lighthearted news, not start with it.
It's okay.
But, NBA Hall of Famer Wes Unseld has unfortunately passed away at the age of 74. Based on the statement, it doesn't sound like it was due to COVID-19, which is, I mean, I don't want to say great news, but I mean, you take that for what it's worth. Wes Unseld, obviously a major part of the early years, helping build the foundation of the success of the NBA.
Right.
Member of the Baltimore Bullets, who ultimately became the Washington Wizards. He was part of the Washington Bullets, so they already moved to Washington at that point.
One of two people to ever win Rookie of the Year and MVP honors in the same season. He won the MVP as a rookie back in 1969. So one of the early greats, and obviously it's been a tough year all around, but especially for the NBA, at least with the topic of losses, David Stern, Kobe Bryant, and now Wes Unseld. So it has not been a fun year, and our condolences go out. I mean, that sucks, but obviously one of the greats. So we send our condolences.
And from what I heard on Twitter, he is very good to use in NBA 2K. So maybe now you got a reason to go use Wes Unseld on NBA 2K.
In his honor tonight, I will be using the Washington Bullets and just scoring 74 points. I will do that tonight.
There you go. Also, some very interesting news regarding Zion Williamson. So he had been headline here is judge says Zion Williamson must answer questions under oath about improper benefits at Duke. Yeah, so I guess it sounds like he's being sued for a very large amount of money.
100 mil, is that right?
$100 million, which is a lot of money.
Now, with all due respect, I guess I don't know how much money 20-year-old Zion Williamson has, but does Zion Williamson have $100 million to be sued for? I'd assume not.
I'm sure he's got a lot of money.
But $100 million?
$100 million is like you're entering like LeBron James territory.
Right. That is a lot of money. And I haven't read the entire situation, but I think it has something to do with he had a group that wanted to represent him as his agent, and he switched up on him. Is that kind of the story?
That's what I'm reading here on ESPN. It sounds it looked like he wanted to be or was with Ford and Prime Sports Marketing.
Okay.
And that was his representation, who he chose after leaving Duke after 1 year.
Okay.
So it's just been Yeah, as Greg Williams says, pocket change. Yeah, pocket change. Yeah.
No. I don't know about that. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. But
yeah.
Greg Williams chiming in. We appreciate you hanging out with us, Greg. I'm interested to see because, look, I think we all at least assume, maybe not every university, but some universities, we assume there's something going on, at least in some degree. I can't say that's happening at Duke. I won't claim that I know anything you don't. But who knows? Under oath, we'll see what comes out here because there's been a lot of changes to the college sports scene, I guess, in the last year. And we talked a little bit about that earlier in the show with Travis Diener about the one and dones. And now that you have the opportunity to go overseas or maybe play in the G League, and maybe colleges will have to go back to using the Rick Pitino-esque style where you have to give out benefits for players to come there. And obviously that's not legal through an NCAA affiliation, but it's an interesting note that I figured I'd bring up. Kyle, appreciate you reading the headlines and the interesting news today. We'll do that each Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. We'll do a 4 o'clock headlines rundown, anything we maybe won't get to in the day. But from this point forward, I want to talk strictly football for the rest of the show because we do have a lot to talk about. And we have Matt Schneidman of The Athletic joining us as the graphic pops up here in about 20 minutes or so. And we'll talk all things Packers. We'll talk everything that's going on with our world because I would be just an idiot with a platform if I didn't use my platform to discuss what's been happening in the world. So Matt Schneidman will give us some good insight later in the hour. But I want to jump into the Packers depth chart a little bit because after, as I mentioned earlier, we're a month and a half removed now from the draft. And now we have some speculation of how things are going to look. And maybe it'll be this or maybe it'll be that. The running back room for the Green Bay Packers is one thing that I cannot stop thinking or talking about. I can't. I cannot stop talking or thinking about the Packers running back room for several reasons. The first of many is the addition of A.J. Dillon from Boston College. That guy looks like he is going to be a stud. And Aaron Jones is entering the final year of his contract, coming off of the best Packers running back season we've seen in a really long time. It is, better than the Lacey Rookie of the Year season. I mean, it matches right up there with Amon Green-esque performances, right? And Aaron Jones is now entering a contract year where we just see what Zeke got paid. We see what Christian McCaffrey got paid. And we assume that Aaron Jones is going to get Christian McCaffrey type money. Maybe not as much, but it'll be in that ballpark. And that's maybe not concerning for Green Bay Packers fans because Aaron Jones wants to be here, we think. And hopefully, I mean, the ideal situation is this. The Packers give him an offer and he says, okay, this is great. And he doesn't look elsewhere. But in a realistic world, that's not what's going to happen. He's going to go get his money, and rightfully so. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, don't go get your chicken, as Marshawn Lynch would say. You got to go get your chicken, AJ. And if that's not in GB, AJ, go get it somewhere where it is, maybe in a place like DC or wherever it might be. Aaron Jones is going to go get his money. And Jamal Williams is a year out from his contract here, whereas A.J. Dillon is now a rookie running back who looks like he's a hard hitter, fall forward, get you 4 rushes or 4 yards a carry type running back. And, obviously, Matt LaFleur's licking his chops at the opportunity to get A.J. Dillon out on the field. But will that take away from Jamal Williams? And we heard from Aaron Jones last week in the Packers' weekly press conferences, which they were supposed to do today, and they just wanted to take content away from me. So we heard from Aaron Jones last week, and when he was asked about the situation with the addition of A.J. Dillon to that running back room, what's it going to look like for Jamal? And he basically just said flat out, Jamal's here to compete, AJ's here to compete, I'm here to compete, we're all here to compete, we're going to compete. Maybe not the exact words he said, but the sentiment remains the same. Aaron Jones is going to be the number one back for Green Bay from week 1 to week, we assume, or maybe we hope, week 21. If he stays healthy, if the Packers are in contention and have stuff to play for, Aaron Jones will be the number one back all season long. That won't change in 2020. What will change is that number 2 back. Jamal Williams isn't going to be the second back for Green Bay come week 17. At least I don't think. I think he's going to pass block when he needs to because he is the best back, at least back with experience in the National Football League on the roster with pass blocking. He can catch, but his role is going to be minimized to special teams come week, 10. A.J. Dillon's going to quickly become the number 2 back in Green Bay. I don't think that's even a prediction on my end. I think that's a fair statement, assessment to draw, to assume. I think A.J. Dillon fits in nicely. And we'll talk to Matt Schneidman about this in about 15 minutes because he did a really nice piece on A.J. Dillon about a week ago, and he's going to explain how he'll fit into this running back situation. Because I assume the Packers aren't going to want to pay Aaron Jones. When you have Jamal Williams for another year, you just drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round. Well, yeah. I think it's time to say goodbye to Aaron Jones after the season, but it also brings up the question, and I'm going to ask Matt Schneidman about this, so we might as well bring it up as a topic of conversation. Is 2020 a win now or else type of year for Green Bay? Because you look at guys that are going to be free agents next summer. David Bakhtiari, Kenny Clark, Aaron Jones. I mean, those are 3 of the maybe top 10 names on the Packers roster right now. These are all guys that need to get paid. And the Packers aren't going to be able to afford all 3 of them. Unless they're really, really good teammates and they want to be here, the Packers aren't going to be able to pay all 3 of them. But that brings up an interesting situation, like the ones you look at right now, right? You let Brian Bulaga walk. You let Blake Martinez walk. You bring in a guy like Christian Kirksey to replace him. He's cheaper and can probably do a similar workload. But this is a very, very big year for Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers, and company. This is the year that the Packers need to go to the Super Bowl. Or else it's a failure in my mind. And that might be really harsh. That might be really, oh, Alex, you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I don't think this is out of line or insane to say, in the very least. Look, if Green Bay is confident enough, and by Green Bay I mean the front office, Brian Gutekunst, Matt LaFleur, and company, if they are confident enough that, okay, we are coming off of an NFC championship run from a year ago. We now don't draft a wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. We signed Devin Funchess. That's enough, Aaron. We're going to go get you a running back, get you an H-back, get you some depth in the offensive line, and you're going to make that work. Because we were just there. We were just there last year. Now, one more step and you're in the big game. Even if you're there, I think that's a success for Green Bay. You win the NFC, that's a successful year. Because if you, Bakhtiari, Clark, Jones are 3 guys that you're not going to be able to keep all 3 of. It's just not a possible scenario. I'm sorry. And if this is the first time you're hearing this, I'm sorry I'm breaking your heart. But at least one of the 3 of David Bakhtiari, Kenny Clark, Aaron Jones won't be a Packer in 2021. I view this as a make or break year. Kyle, being the host of the Lambeau Lead, I guess I'd like to get at least a brief thought out of your corner, if you don't mind. I view this as a make or break year, just given what they did a year ago. Yes? No?
You make up a great point with the free agents. You have to look at guys like Kevin King, also a free agent. So, I mean, even though he's not a top 10 guy, top 15, I would think.
Coming off of the year he had last year, absolutely.
Yeah. And Packers, players historically, looking Randall Cobb, Casey Hayward, guys who have huge seasons in their contract years. So, if you win the Super Bowl, just say you win the Super Bowl this year, are you content with losing those guys knowing that you're going to take a downfall in the next couple of years?
You have to be, right? Because I think either way you look at it right now, as we stand on the very outside looking in from whatever the 2020 NFL season will be, it's you can't retain all those guys. Of course, as soon as possible, you're going to want to lock up. If I was Gutekunst, I want to lock up Bakhtiari right away, and probably Clark too. And then the odd man left out, or odd men really, are Aaron Jones and Kevin King. Can you afford to keep? I think that's a great fourth name to bring into play. Can you afford to keep all four of those guys? And I no.
I think you could afford 3 out of the 4 if you strategize it correctly. You think about the running back position as a whole. It sucks, but it's a very easily replaceable position, especially in a system where it's very similar to what you see with San Francisco. You see guys like Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida. They show up. These aren't big names,
right,
that you see show up. So you can afford to take A.J. Dillon. You can afford to use, a 3-man rotation of players. It's just the running back position is so easy to replace. And it sucks because I love Aaron Jones as much as the next Packers fan. I love him to death. He's one of my favorites. But if you work the money correctly, and remember, we have Russ Ball, who is, Russ Ball magic. The dude is great with money. I would even say that Kenny Clark is number 1 just because our run defense is so poor. And if it wasn't for Kenny Clark, we probably would have had the worst ranked run defense in the NFL last season. And then you look at David Bakhtiari, who is top 5 left tackle in the league. And then you look at, Kevin King and then Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
There's mutual interest with Jones and the Packers on making it and having an extension. If you can figure out a way, I don't know if there is, but if you can figure out a way, it might be possible. But it's going to be very, very difficult to do so.
You're right, and you bring up that mutual interest, but I just don't see how, in any way, shape, or form, you can have Aaron Jones wanting realistic money and the Packers saying, come on, dude. Because you take the approach that you just did, Kyle, right? Running backs are A, replaceable, and B, their tenure is not long. Do you see very many running backs at 30 years old really, really tearing it up? Adrian Peterson, maybe a little bit. Frank Gore, maybe a little bit. LaShawn McCoy, maybe a little bit. Can you name anybody else? And that's minimal impact, not Aaron Jones impact. He's going to want Christian McCaffrey money, and rightfully so. But unless he takes a big, big, big chunk of that off that contract, I don't think he's a Packer in 2021. If you don't mind, bring Jimmy's comment up. Where do you rank Lindsley? Because he will also be a free agent in 2021. The Packers center will be. He has to be in the conversation. He's going to be cheaper than a guy like David Bakhtiari, right? He's going to be cheaper than Bakhtiari, cheaper than Clark, definitely cheaper than Jones. I think they get that deal done. And we know the Packers' history with centers, at least the past 15 years, hasn't been the greatest. Scott Wells, Jeff Saturday, Evan Dietrich Smith, and now Corey Lindsley. You remember the Jeff Saturday season. I think they benched him at some point, but there was a Jeff Saturday season. He was a Packer for a while. But Corey Lindsley has to be high up.
Lindsley has been very consistent over his, tenure in Green Bay. Very underrated. You look at offensive line, and those guys are underrated and underappreciated to begin with. But even Corey Lindsley is like a name you forget about. You talk about David Bakhtiari and Brian Bulaga and now Elton Jenkins, and you kind of leave Corey Lindsley to the side. He's not. The dude has started almost every game his last contract. I could think of 1 or 2 games he's missed since he signed his 4-year deal a couple years ago. Would have been 4 years ago. So it's 3. So Lindsley is. I'm glad Jimmy you brought up this point because Lindsley is very underrated along the entire offensive line. Now that you bring in guys like Jake Hansen and John Runyon who can play inside, maybe they are looking to replace Lindsley to kind of save money, to use towards Kenny Clark, David Bakhtiari, and Aaron Jones and Kevin King. So maybe that is their thought process. But those guys that they also brought in can also play tackle as well. So you can think of the flip side where they're thinking about building them up at tackle, getting rid of Bakhtiari, and then keeping Lindsley. So I don't necessarily know if they can keep both Lindsley and Bakhtiari. They could, but that means you're not getting Kevin King, you're not getting Aaron Jones, you're not getting Kenny Clark. So you have either way. I would be absolutely shocked if they got all 5 guys back. It's not going to happen.
It's not even in the realm of possibility for me. No, it's just not.
Aaron Rodgers would have to take a pay cut. Devontae Adams would have to take a pay cut. All these guys would have to come in for pennies on the dollar. It ain't going to happen. So, I mean, at best, you can get 4 out of those 5 guys, and that's if you work the cap.
I think that's still stretching it, Kyle. I really think that's still stretching it.
And I mean, that's if you're playing cap games, and you have to think about this, too. Another good point, with the coronavirus and the impact, the economic impact, the salary cap isn't going up next year. At best, it's staying – they're going to freeze the salary cap at where it is.
Right.
That's best case scenario. The salary cap isn't going up. Even if there's fans. If there's fans, and this is maybe a conversation we'll have with Matt, but, that's just the way it is.
He's a producer, and he's an accountant. That's Kyle Hoffenbecker, everybody. You're unbelievable. Exactly, a man of just so many talents. So let's wrap up on this note, folks. And look, we mentioned all the names you could. We mentioned all the names that'll be free agents next year. And it is scary as a Packers fan. I get it, man. I get it. It is scary as a Packers fan to look at, okay, name 1, name 2, name 3, name 4. Oh, my goodness. The entire team is going to be a free agent, essentially, right? So that's why I view 2020 as a make or break year. We talk about, at best, we're signing 3 of these 5. The Packers will be re-signing 3 of those 5 names in Bakhtiari, Clark, Jones, Lindsley, and King. Ooh. And it's always tough to part ways because you look at the leader in tackles on the defense last year, Blake Martinez. They let him walk because replaceable. And we would have hoped to hear from Christian Kirksey here at the top of the hour, but now his debut press conference as a Packer has been postponed. So hopefully we'll have some sound bites from that for Thursday. It's replaceable, right? It is. It absolutely is. So you look at Brian Bulaga as well, who took a walk, and it's all just, we'll see how this comes to fruition. We are going to take a quick timeout. On the other side, it'll be Matt Schneidman of The Athletic joining us to talk all things Packers. This is the Alex Strouf Show on Cream City Central. We welcome you back into the Alex Strouf Show right here on Cream City Central. I'm Alex Strouf. We head to the phone lines now. And I don't play favorites, but I got to say one of my favorites that covers the Packers joins us now. It is Matt Schneidman, who covers the Packers for The Athletic. Matt, how are we? How's everything on your end, my friend?
Good.
And it looks like we're experiencing a little bit of difficulty, but we'll try to power through here, Matt. Obviously, the last several – there we go. I think we got you now. Everything during the last several months has been weird. You staying healthy? You staying good up in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I'm actually back in Connecticut with family. Have been for the past couple months.
Gotcha.
But everything's going well. How about on your end?
Everything's good here, man. I've avoided the virus, which is good. But it has been no doubt a crazy few months, and now especially the last few weeks with the death of George Floyd. And I want to jump right into that, Matt, because you and I have both been vocal about this situation, and I got to give you props for using your platform the way you have. But this morning, Matt, you released a really, really awesome piece. You had a conversation with Packers offensive lineman Billy Turner. I encourage everybody to go check out that conversation. Kind of overall glimpse. What'd you take away from that conversation, Matt?
I even hesitate to put into words my takeaways. I think what I tried to do is just get out of the way and let Billy talk. He's
right.
the Minneapolis native. He's been living there since the season ended. He's an African-American and has a great understanding of where we are as a country, what we need to do to improve. And, the line that hit me the hardest was when he said, I'm not surprised, as much as I hate to say it, that a policeman caused the death of George Floyd. I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, I'm numb to it, and I don't hate anything in this world, but I hate the fact that I'm numb to it, pretty much is what he said. And that's the harsh reality. So we basically just talked about his emotions, what white people can do to help, for lack of a better word, how he plans to help the Minneapolis community, what the next steps are, and how he addressed it in the offensive line room over Zoom the other day. But I encourage anyone who's listening to read it, not because I wrote it, not at all. It's just because I think we can all learn a lot from what Billy said.
Yeah, and you did paraphrase, but you did shoot out kind of a small excerpt on your Twitter, so I'm going to go ahead and read it so you don't have to paraphrase. But does it hit closer for me because it happened just miles away? 100% it does. But I absolutely hate to say that I'm numb to it, and I hate it. I hate it. I don't hate anything, and I do hate that. So just absolutely powerful stuff from Billy Turner when you had your conversation with him. A couple Packers also have spoken out on this issue. So it seems like the locker room, at least in whole, really supportive of one another is kind of what I'm getting. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you see everyone from Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams to Corey Linsley to Josh Nijman, who's a reserve offensive tackle who doesn't have social media, but Corey Linsley thanked him for kind of speaking up in their O-line room and making him want to speak out. It certainly seems like they're together on this. Something Billy told me was he was extremely thankful how Matt LaFleur and the rest of the coaches were really understanding yesterday of, not wanting to talk about football and realizing that wasn't appropriate. And then today we were supposed to have conference calls with David Bakhtiari and Christian Kirksey, and those were both postponed. I'm guessing because, it just doesn't feel right to talk about actual football matters today. So we'll see what more the players say. I think their response has been fitting so far. We can't say anything that's said is right or wrong. You can't judge people based on what they post because you never know what they're doing. Like Aaron Rodgers posted just the black screen that everyone's posting for this Blackout Tuesday, and people are saying, oh, he's just posting that. He's not. That's all he said. But you don't know if Aaron Rodgers is doing anything. Just because someone isn't broadcasting every single thing they're doing doesn't mean they're not doing anything. So I think everyone needs to realize that. But I think the locker room is certainly together on that.
Beautifully put, as always. We were joined by Matt Schneidman here on the Alex Strouf Show, at Matt Schneidman on Twitter. He covers the Packers for The Athletic. And Matt, right before we joined, or you joined us rather, we were having a great conversation, switching gears a bit, about the Packers running back room. And you did a great piece on A.J. Dillon last week. And kind of what I just summed up in my hit was, I think A.J. Dillon's going to be Jamal Williams in 2020. I think he's kind of going to take over that number 2 role. What's your feeling about the Packers running back room as we heard from Aaron Jones last week and your piece from A.J. Dillon also from last week?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much work A.J. Dillon actually gets. I think Jamal Williams is probably one of the better number 2 running backs in the league, and I'm interested to see if A.J. Dillon cuts into his workload at all. Obviously, after this coming season, both Jones and Williams will be unrestricted free agents. So I have a sense that this A.J. Dillon pick is as much about having a better number 3 this year as it is a safety valve in case one or both of Jones and Williams depart in free agency. Now, both of them could be back, one of them could be back, and neither of them could be back, and that's why you need Dillon. But I think it'll be interesting to see whether Jones gets less carries because Dillon's here. I would expect not, because I thought Jones should have gotten more carries last year. But if anything, I think it's just another option they have to close those close games in the fourth quarter that they did so well winning last year. He's 6 feet tall, 247 pounds, runs a 4.5. And everyone I talked to for that story basically said, people might think it's a reach now, but once they see him running over people and nobody willing to tackle him in the fourth quarter of December games at Lambeau, then they'll be happy with the pick.
Yeah, I imagine so, because that pick, as much as it was a head scratcher, as many of them were about a month and a half ago in the NFL draft, that one has really come to light in the last few weeks and has really started to become an interesting move that the Packers made. But you made up the impending free agency for Williams and Jones, other names on that list, David Bakhtiari, Corey Linsley, Kenny Clark, the list goes on and on. It's a big free agency class for Green Bay next year. And we were just talking about this, so I want to get your take. Coming off an NFC championship run last year, is this a make it or break it type of year for Green Bay? Is it really they've got to go and win it all, or at least get to the big game, or is it a failure?
I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't call getting to the NFC Championship game or even the Super Bowl and not winning it a failure.
Right.
I think after last year and the people they return, it's certainly within reason to expect they can get back there. Granted, the Saints, the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Bucs, like the NFC is stacked, but let's not forget the Packers still have a top 5 quarterback, running back, wide receiver, edge rushing duo, defensive tackle, and Jair Alexander, I think, is a top 10 corner. So the Packers still have the pieces to make it far. I don't think it would be a failure, but I think the window obviously is closing because what I will say is close to a failure, not a failure, because one Super Bowl in a career is not a failure. But with Aaron Rodgers' talent, I think it would be a lost opportunity, I'll put it that way, if they don't get him a second Super Bowl. So the window on that is obviously closing, as evidenced by the Jordan Love pick.
Yeah, as one of the only Packers fans that was excited about the Jordan Love pick, and I'm not excited to push Aaron Rodgers out by any means, give him all the time he wants. I'm happy to hear you say that. So let's actually jump right there. We're a month and a half removed from the Jordan Love pick. I haven't talked to you since. What was kind of the initial reaction, and what's kind of the reaction that you've gotten in the last month and a half about that pick?
I was stunned just because I expected them to draft a quarterback while Rodgers was still on the roster, but I did not expect it to happen when he had 4 years left on his contract.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how they integrate him into the team. I obviously don't expect him to play for the next 2 years, but what's going to be most interesting, and I think by all accounts from what Rodgers has said, LaFleur, Jordan Love has said, this relationship should probably go a lot better, and it looks like it will, than the one that Favre and Rodgers had. So this chemistry and culture that everyone hyped up in the locker room last year shouldn't suffer at all. I think it'll be interesting to see whether they try and force Rodgers out after the next 2 years, because that's really the earliest they can move on from him in a trade. Just financially, they can't really do it in the next 2 years, feasibly at least. So I could see Jordan Love starting at quarterback in 2022. I could see him never playing a snap for the Packers, and Rodgers playing out the rest of his career here, even though he's admitted, that's probably not as likely now after the Jordan Love pick. But I'm really interested to see how this pans out. It's certainly one of the more intriguing storylines in the NFL. And I personally think that Aaron Rodgers is going to come out, and even though he says he doesn't have anything to prove because of the pick, I think he's going to come out and be like, look, I still got it, and he's going to play really well this year.
Yeah, this could be like a pissed off, chip on the shoulder Aaron Rodgers we've never seen, and it could just result in maybe a repeat of what happened in 2014, or at least, I guess, for a guy in your sake, a guy that covers them, and a guy like me, a fan of the team, we could only hope for a 15-1 year, but who knows? So, Matt, before we let you go, I got to ask, you said Jordan Love, you have no idea. What's the ceiling, you think, for Jordan Love? Is it Aaron Rodgers-esque? Is it lower than that? In your professional opinion, what do you think the ceiling is for a guy like Jordan Love?
It's so hard to tell, and I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes is the ceiling for him, but in talking to a handful of his former teammates and coaches, that's the name I heard the most, just because of his arm strength. And I'm not going to say his decision-making, because Jordan Love's decision-making is nowhere near what Patrick Mahomes is, and his accuracy is nowhere near. But the reason he was compared to him was because of his mobility and his arm strength. And obviously, Patrick Mahomes didn't have the greatest year at Texas Tech before he came out, but he's a once-in-a-lifetime talent. And to see that jump that Patrick Mahomes made to where he is now as a Super Bowl MVP, It's just unreasonable to expect that from Jordan Love, especially someone who's not going to play as early as Mahomes did. So I'm not saying that's the ceiling, but if people say that they share at least some traits, then I think that's a good sign.
Matt, of all the comparisons that I thought were going to come out of your mouth, that was not one of them. I'll be completely honest with you.
What did you think I was going to say?
I didn't expect Patrick Mahomes. I'll give you that much. I guess I don't know. We heard a lot of comps for Jordan Love coming out, but I don't know how much I saw Patrick Mahomes. That's interesting. It makes complete sense given the backup you just gave it, but that's not the answer I was expecting. So that's interesting. I appreciate that insight. Last one for you, Matt, before we let you go and have the rest of your night. Who has the most to prove for the Packers in 2020? You can give me a guy on either side of the ball, both sides of the ball, however you want to look at it. We know Kevin King last year was a name that kept coming up as a guy with something to prove. Is there a Kevin King-like guy that you see on the team this year for Green Bay that has a lot to prove?
Yeah, I think I'll go one on both sides of the ball. I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling on the offensive side. He really dropped off in the second half of the season. I think he only had 5 catches for 30-something yards in the last 8-9 games or something like that, after he had those 2 for 133 and a touchdown against the Raiders in week 7. He was battling some injuries, but I think it was really just more of a confidence thing, as cliche as that is. And with the bodies they brought in at wide receiver, Devin Funchess, Reggie Begelton, Alan Lazard proving himself in the second half of last season, Valdes-Scantling is no lock to make the roster. I think he has a lot to prove. And on the defensive side, I want to say Rashawn Gary, but I still think it was unfair, the expectation the Packers put on him, drafting him at number 12 and then stuffing him at 4th on the outside linebacker depth chart.
Right.
So I'm going to say Dean Lowry. I think, they extended him for 3 years before training camp last year. It was not great, for lack of a better word, on the defensive line. 23rd in the league in rushing defense, the Packers were. Then we obviously saw what happened in the NFC Championship game with 186 rushing yards allowed before contact. I think to complement Kenny Clark and really shore up that defensive front, Dean Lowry's got to be better. I mean, Tyler Lancaster obviously does too, but the expectations don't come with him or Kingsley Keechie or necessarily Montrevious Adams because they weren't extended and given a nice new contract. So I'll Dean Lowry and Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
Dean Lowry and MVS with something to prove in 2020. Matt, you stay safe, my friend. We always appreciate you jumping on, and you're a fountain of knowledge, so we'll have to do it again sometime soon, all right?
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Matt. That's Matt Schneidman of The Athletic, where he covers the Green Bay Packers, giving us all the insight. And I want to jump on that last answer he gave us right away. The guys with the most to prove when the season, we assume, inevitably happens in 2020. MVS, who he said was not a lock to make the roster, which I find great. I agree with that 100%. He mentioned all the names. Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard, Devin Funchess, Equanimous St. Brown isn't going to make the roster. I'll break that to you right now. MVS, no lock. Jake Kumaro, no lock. He brought up Reggie Begelton, who people are huge on. Darius Shepard, a lot of people think he has huge upside. The wide receiver room for Green Bay is going to look very, very interesting in 2020 because you have to remember, you have to cut this down to 5 or 6 guys. And you have at least 3 locks that are going to make the roster in Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard, and Devin Funchess. And then probably Reggie Begelton. I mean, you assume he makes the roster because everybody's hyped up on that one. And MVS and Kumaro is probably the 6 I'm looking at. You could also make the case maybe for Darius Shepard if he really shows out once training camp comes around. All right, we've reached the last 15 minutes. We're going to hit our final break, and we'll come back. We'll wrap up, and we will preview Thursday's show. This is the Alex Strouf Show on Cream City Central. We welcome you back into the Alex Strouf Show right here on CreamCityCentral.com and at Cream City CTRAL on Twitter, at Cream City Central on Facebook, and of course archived on YouTube. If you're watching us there, then I guess we're not live. But nonetheless, we appreciate all of you that have jumped in, commented, and interacted with us today, our premiere episode of the Alex Strouf Show. We had some great stuff in hour one, talking about baseball potentially, coming back, maybe not. We ran our Twitter poll, Alex Strouf Show Twitter poll, as we will each Tuesday and Thursday. Will there be an MLB season in 2020? 51.8% of you said yes, whereas 48.2% of you said either no or hell no, for those of you that like to be intense like myself. First off, let's jump to what we talked about with Travis Diener. I mean, that guy was just terrific. Talking about his experience in Italy during really the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic in the U.S., while it was totally flourished in Italy. Got the last flight out of Italy, he said, him and his family, to make it back here to Wisconsin. And of course, he said he could take Steve Novak one-on-one. Maybe not Dwayne Wade, his old teammate, but his other old teammate, Steve Novak. We just got off the phone with Matt Schneidman of The Athletic. All things Packers. Again, I want to promote that conversation that he released this morning with offensive lineman Billy Turner about everything going on, the Black Lives Matter movement, his hometown, Minneapolis. Just a very, very informative and great piece. Matt Schneidman, one of the best to do it for the Green Bay Packers. So he does it for The Athletic. You can go see his work. And we had a lot of other fun conversations. Is it make or break for the Packers in 2020? I view it as yes. I just don't see how the Packers, I'm not saying they have to go out and win the Super Bowl, but they have to use up what little of Aaron Rodgers' time is left. And Matt Schneidman made a great anecdote there in that regard. So on Thursday, we will do some more Packers talk. We will talk Bucks as well on Thursdays. We didn't get to do a whole lot of that with the impending return of the National Basketball Association at Walt Disney World on July 31st. The Bucks have the best record in the NBA, and we've got to see how they're going to shake up. And, of course, on Thursday, we will do Fight Night. We will listen to somebody's top 5 quarterbacks heading into the 2020 season after I gave mine today. And we will do all of that right here, same time, same place, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time on Cream City Central and their social platforms. Excuse me. So that will do it for the June 2nd edition of the Alex Strouf Show. Thanks so much to Kyle Hoffenbecker, who was on the buttons producing the show for us today. Great job, as always, on his end, and we appreciate all of his hard work. Big thanks to all of you again for tuning in. Thanks to Travis Diener and Matt Schneidman for calling into the Alex Strouf Show. That will do it. My name is Alex Strouf. We'll see you on Thursday. Peace.